We have a group of people who are in the process in the next 72 hours who will be coming forward with a great deal of information and evidence.
It's a huge story and said off-world technology.
And just visually looking at the object on the ground, that it was extraordinary.
And came back and started elevating upward, and I was like, this is weird. What the hell is that?
Like it was just levitating above the podium.
Congress just lied to the American public.
Are we alone? And the short answer, we're not.
We did recover things. It was not human. We all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary.
This whole thing was a setup.
These hieroglyphic symbols that I started to see appear.
Holy shit. That all just happened in the last couple of days. Okay, normally we do Weird Week on like a Saturday or a Sunday, but it's Friday here in Australia now, and I felt like I had to put all this together because shit is about to hit the fan, and I feel like people need to see this stuff before the shit starts spraying all over the walls, okay? So that's not even all of it. What you just saw there, we've got more, okay? And this is all very timely. This is all in the last couple of days. We've got Stephen Greer doubling down, putting his whole reputation on the line, saying this is happening within the next, now 48 hours. Ross Coulthart said the same thing. He's airing a story on 8 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday with video evidence of a crash retrieval. Jesse Michels had a Green Beret whistleblower talking about off-world technology that he was shown. Jeremy Corbell has new footage of a gimbal, and he also has another whistleblower. It feels like all the major key players around disclosure that have kind of been operating in their own lanes for years have now kind of converged on this like big coordinated spearhead attack that is happening in the next couple of days. Like, these are wild times. And even this week's creator shout out has never before seen interview footage about encounters with UFOs and NHI off the coast of Peru. And unless you use TikTok, you have not seen these videos before. Like, this is breaking in the last 12 hours, and it broke on TikTok. And I've gotten his permission to share them in this episode with you today. So as I said, news is about to go crazy. I think from next week, we're going to be doing more like daily or bi-daily, just kind of news episodes to keep up with everything. Yesterday, I aired the first episode of the Polarity podcast. So if you haven't seen that out, make sure you check that out as well. That was a long conversation with Reese Dalton Morgan about Australia's history with UFOs and crash retrievals. And before we get into the show as well, I just wanted to say, make sure you join our Discord. If you use Discord, it's open to the whole community. It's where you can get in there, share content, mingle, and kind of get in the conversation with what's happening. And our Polarity members have their own designated section as well, where they can kind of just chat amongst themselves. But it is open to everyone, so I just want to stress that. So today's episode is, it's basically all UFOs. So we're not going to have any segments. This is one big hit to do with UFOs, and we're going to kick it off with Stephen Greer. So he's just started the first episode of his own podcast, right? And he's basically done this because he believes what's about to unfold over the next 72 hours is that he says that's when it's going to begin, but it's going to continue over the next few months, but it's starting soon. And he wants to have a podcast because he wants to have a place to kind of make sure the narrative doesn't get twisted, because he thinks the people who don't want to relinquish control of this technology and this information are going to push back and try and twist the narrative the way that they want it to go. So he's going to be doing weekly episodes there. I'll leave a link to his podcast in the description, but I have got a bunch of clips here. I mean, today's episode is just clip city. I've been doing overtime, okay, making clips for this episode because I just wanted to get this out now because it's going off, all right? So let's not waste any more time and let's get into the first clip from Stephen Greer.
We have a group of people who are in the process in the next 72 hours or so who will be coming forward with a great deal of information and evidence related to the UFO and NHI or extraterrestrial issue. There are a number of people coming forward from various black sites, which are highly classified, illegally run operations in intelligence, military, and corporate programs. And those guys that I've been meeting with for about almost 2 years now, 20 months, have decided to come forward publicly, identify themselves, and in a controlled release begin to give the information to the American people and the U.S. government. So this is a very complex program. It's now coming to a sort of a crescendo.
There you go. In the next 72 hours from that video, which would make it now when I'm recording this, and from when you see this, or from when it's uploaded, probably about 30 to 36 hours, roughly. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. There are big names putting their reputation on the line. Stephen Greer isn't the only one. But as I said, the timing with this stuff is just wild right now, because we've just had a Green Beret bomber, Green Beret Cybertruck bomber claiming information about UAP. We've just had another Green Beret go on Jesse Michels' podcast this week talking about the off-world tech. We're going to be looking at him soon. We've got another first-hand whistleblower from within the program, so high military guy coming out through Ross Coulthart. Jeremy Corbell, he's got a whistleblower. Like I said, all of these people are coming together at once. And the thing is, Stephen Greer has been talking about Green Berets and high-level military guys for a long time. And I think he even tried to claim the Cybertruck bomber as one of his guys as well. I can't confirm that for you, but this is what I mean. It's all coming together right now, and it's just wild. And I kind of wonder if all these people that have been operating in their own lane, I wonder if they've actually all been kind of communicating in the shadows, and this is like a coordinated plan, because that's what, after today's show, I'm sure you will agree, seems like it's going to be playing out, because there are big wheels in motion here, I think, much bigger than we can see. Next week's going to be insane. All right, let's check out the next clip.
I was asked to brief the incoming director of the CIA for President Bill Clinton, and that subsequently led to a number of things you're going to hear about with initiatives that began then and are now, ironically, going full circle and culminating now this week and in the months to follow. I want to emphasize that there are two governments dealing with this. There's the constitutional government. Most of the people in that government have no idea what's going on. And I can say that with authority because I'm one of the only people you'll ever meet who has briefed people at that level of government since 1993, when I briefed the incoming President Clinton's CI director. Then, the other part of it is in Congress, or most people in Congress, they know nothing about the subject, even if they're on key oversight committees. So this has been something that was a shock to me. It's going to be a shock to you. It's going to be a shock to the world and the American public to find out that the constitutional government in the United States since the late 1950s have been basically pushed aside and relegated to irrelevance, frankly, on this issue since the late Eisenhower years.
So Greer is talking about how during the Clinton administration, the government was already split. There was already this kind of shadow government that was really pulling the strings. And he's saying that this was actually in place from as early as Eisenhower, who, when he left office, made that famous speech about warning us about the power of the military-industrial complex. And if you watch my videos, if you've been around for a while, you would have seen that Paul Hellyer, the National Minister of Defense for Canada, also was saying the same thing.
Veteran White House reporter asked President Bill Clinton why he didn't do something about UFO disclosure. Clinton replied, "Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it." End of quote.
Sorry about that, guys. This is a live show, okay? We do this all live in one hit, so there are little mistakes sometimes, but this was also thrown together in such a rush. But I spent a lot of time putting together today's episode, so there's lots of good stuff here. So we just saw that throwback clip. There's multiple people talking about the fact that the government is split. The government that we see is a facade, and the people that are really in charge and pulling the strings, the deep state, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, it's real. And these people who are in positions to know are telling us that. So these are some of the claims that Greer made on his podcast about this shadow government. And as I said, these are the guys that are really pulling the strings. He said that the shadow government hoaxes threats and attacks to consolidate military and industrial power. Again, this is the danger of the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about. And that they want disclosure to happen. So they actually are allowing disclosure to happen, but they want to twist it with a threat narrative. And Stephen Greer believes there is no threat. There is absolutely no threat at all. And I'm not 100% sure about that, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But the disclosure that they want, it favors secrecy and it favors more war. And the war will be against the aliens. It'll be against the military-industrial complex will gain funding under the guise of a new threat, just like they did with terrorism and communism and all the other rogue nations over the last half a century. He says that they've mastered this technology, they've reverse engineered it, the deep state, the CIA, or whoever's really pulling these strings, and that they've been used, these reproduced vehicles, ARVs, they're sometimes called alien reproduction vehicles, that they've been used in operations for abductions and cattle mutilations since the late 50s as a psyop. So they've been trying to condition the population to this idea to prepare for this threat narrative. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, because he's not clear. He's not really clear when he says that, if he's saying every abduction and every mutilation, cattle mutilation, is a fake event, is a hoax by the government. Like, honestly, that's kind of tough to believe. I'll admit, I'm not saying it's either true or false, but this is what I do. I put the information out here for us to digest and have our opinions together. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm just trying to tell you to think. And I do that by giving you the information. So let's go. Next quote. Come on, next quote.
The week that the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, the fabled director of that, Ben Rich, was passing away, he told a member of our team and a friend of mine, James Goodall, a very well-known aerospace historian, that we had figured all this out. And this is now 1995. So this is 30 years ago. And he says, anything you can imagine and anything you've seen on Star Trek, we already have. And it's not at Area 51. It's out there in the desert with the Lockheed Skunk Works. Now, I've been at that facility, and I've been there in the last 15 months. So what he was saying was that we have figured this out, but the folks who have, let's say, an overarching desire to control the population through fear, through endless war, through control of the energy sector, this is key, they don't want the full truth out, they want part of the truth out. And they want the part that redounds to their benefit, that serves their agenda.
The agenda being more war and a threat. Okay, so there was a lot right there to kind of go through. First of all, he references Ben Rich, the director of the Skunk Works, who we've looked at multiple times, not necessarily Ben Rich, but the Skunk Works, right? Their technology is out of this world. Even the stuff that is public knowledge, that is perhaps not in the public eye, but if you dig, you can find it, and we've looked at it, is insane. And we've shown videos of Don Phillips, an ex-employee of the Skunk Works, who said the CIA were the Skunk Works' biggest customer. And in that clip, he also references James Goodall, who's an aviation author, who, again, we also looked at last month. And here's a little refresher clip on that one.
I've had the opportunity over the years to interview, again, people who have worked at the test site at Groom Lake. One gentleman spent 12 of his 30 years in black programs at Groom Lake. When I asked him, I said, first of all, I said, do you believe in UFOs? And he looked at me with a straight face in one-on-one. He said, absolutely, positively, they do exist. I said, can you expand upon that? And he said, no, I can't. There has been at least 3 sightings of triangular-shaped aircraft being launched out of that area. They made no noise, and just people just happened to look up and see these things leaving the area at relatively low altitude. But again, no noise. A year later, we were talking about, again, activities at Groom Lake. And I asked him, I said, can you really tell me what's happening out there? And he said, well, there's a lot of things that are going on there that I won't be able to tell you until the year 2025. But we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious. He looked me straight in the eye and he said, we have things out there that are literally out of this world. I said, explain. He said, I can't. But trust me. See, we have things that are better than Star Trek.
Crazy, right? Okay, so the big one there is obviously you'll find out in 2025. He's very specific about that quote, and I mean, it feels like we're about to find out. Let's be real. There's a whole bunch of other things though. First of all, he mentions Groom Lake, and this is exactly where Matthew Livelsberger, the Cybertruck bomber, placed coordinates leading to where America's anti-gravitic propulsion systems are worked on and developed. Okay, so there's another little dot being connected there. Bob Lazar, since the 80s, has said Groom Lake is the test range where they test fly these craft, and that's where I believe he took John, or John Lear took him, or I can't quite remember that, but there's a connection between Bob Lazar and John Lear going to Groom Lake, or just on the outskirts of Groom Lake in like the 80s to show one or the other the craft. I think it might have been Bob showing John Lear because he was kind of scared for his life at that point. Anyway, if anyone wants to correct me if I've gotten that wrong, please go ahead, but I'm pretty sure that's the story there behind Bob Lazar, John Lear, and Groom Lake. Now, he also said in the 90s, they had technology that was literally out of this world, better than Star Trek, and things that would make George Lucas envious. If you don't know who George Lucas is, he's the guy who wrote Star Wars. So just let that sink in for a moment. Now I'm going to give you some more quotes from Stephen Greer from the podcast. He's like I mentioned earlier. He says that he doesn't believe that they're hostile at all. He says ETs are not hostile. Now, I sort of believe there's a lot of them, and they probably have different agendas. Some maybe are, some maybe aren't. But he backs up his claim by saying, if they were, we would be obliterated by now. And I understand that, thinking about it in like a human sense, because we like to take over and conquer things. So we would like, as we have done, we have found land and just removed the people from it and claimed it as our own. We have a horrible history of doing that. But I don't think something that's operating between worlds and dimensions might necessarily think that way. I mean, if they can get from here to here in an instant, they probably don't care so much about territory, right? Like, it's probably not as relevant to them. I mean, I'm speculating here, but my point is, they might be able to harm us. If they're operating in higher dimensions and just things that we can barely wrap our head around, they could be harming us in ways that aren't physical. And I think that's probably more likely, right? Like our consciousness, like psychologically twisting us into a constant state of fear. Makes you wonder who's really in control. Why is the news full of fear mongering and bad stories all the time? It makes you wonder, right? So anyway, he also said that they are waiting for us to live peacefully on the planet, for us to not be using fossil fuels and like burning things that are destroying the atmosphere. And once we do that, then we're able to kind of join them in an interplanetary society. Okay, he says that the technology that will come with the release, if it's successful, of this movement which is the objective of all these whistleblowers coming forward in the next few days. It will help us reach a level 1 civilization, which is a civilization that is able to operate without any environmental damage, no poverty, free energy. And he believes that the technology is there to do this, and that if it comes out, it'll probably take about 20 years. And in 20 years, it will be like the biggest leap forward in human history. It'll be like a complete new age. We'll be living in a complete different way. But he also says that's why it's a secret, right? Because one, this amazing technology can also be weaponized. So it's like a double-edged sword. He says that there'll be winners and losers in this. And obviously the biggest losers are the ones who already have this stuff and they're using it to themselves without oversight to their complete own benefit. They're the biggest losers. But also, you know, trust is going to flip. Like, do we even need a government after this? I mean, we'll obviously need something, but, you know, is a government going to seem like a really like archaic, barbaric, and primitive governing structure? Religion, energy companies, like the biggest powers in the world have everything to lose with this coming out. And I think, one, that's why it's the biggest cover-up of all time. And two, that's why there's just been so much resistance to this stuff coming out. You know, people see things and they see it with their own eyes and they question if they're crazy because it's just been beaten into them that you're a lunatic if you talk about this stuff. Like, this is the most successful cover-up and psychological operation of all time. The cover-up, not UFOs, is the psychological operation. Anyway, I'm sure you understood what I meant. He also said that there's obviously like a big risk here, right? Like, this isn't just disclose the information and all over, we win, here's the UFOs. It's like a process, and he thinks that there's going to be like retaliation, there's going to be resistance. So this change in society is going to be bumpy. It's not going to be smooth. There's going to be like, it's going to be rough. And I feel that that kind of makes sense though, right? Like, giant change that is for the greater good at the very end never comes easy. Like, it's always a tough, turbulent road to get there, but once you're there, it's like revolutionary. Like, that's just the way it is, right? That's the way things go. People don't really like change, especially the ones who are benefiting the most from the way things are before the change occurs. And unlucky for us, they're the most powerful people in the world. So he says, he actually said, Ross said that, I don't actually think I clipped this up, but look, I'll leave links to everything for you. But Ross said that if the people who are going to put up a fight against this stuff want a fight, Ross looked at the camera and goes, they better look out. And look, we're going to get to Ross in a minute, but the guy's got a 30+ year extensive and highly credited career as an investigative journalist before he ever looked into UAPs. Okay, this guy isn't just some UAP researcher. He came onto this topic as a investigator who started looking at things in the Middle East, and he's got a whole career behind him. So him saying this kind of stuff, he's well connected. We all know that. I think there's a lot to this. Like, he knows stuff, and there is a big plan under the hood here that I think is about to begin. Okay, so here is the last Greer clip, and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we're going to move on to the next person. Now we're going to watch it.
And the people coming forward have dealt directly, operationally, with those strikes and with the targeting and downing of these extraterrestrial vehicles. He said that 1 or 2 ET craft a year, even now, are targeted and downed over that one site. While there's no evidence that these civilizations visiting us are hostile, they are certainly concerned about our hostility. And the only question is the patience and largesse that have been shown to us as an evolving younger brothers and sisters in the cosmos. How much longer will that patience last? Colonel Corso, who had been involved with some of the technology transfer from studying the extraterrestrial craft from the 40s and 50s. And at one point, I think it was 1956, he was out at White Sands Missile Range where the first atomic bomb was detonated. And there have been all these ET craft zipping around. And at one point, he drove out because one came in on radar and went down out in a remote area of the range. And he drove out there in his Jeep, and there was a ET craft there, and it would be solid, and then it would dematerialize and look like a heat wave, like a mirage in the desert, and then rematerialize and dematerialize and rematerialize. Finally, it became stable, and an ET appeared outside of it. The ET basically was saying, would you please stop targeting us? Because they were using the radar that had within it piggyback. This is what happened at Roswell, by the way. A early directional energy weapon that would hit these objects and they'd crash. I mean, there's this myth that somehow these ET objects go through interstellar space and interdimensional space and then can't navigate a thunderstorm in New Mexico. Well, this is ludicrous. They're targeted and have been ever since the 40s.
So obviously that is a wild story. It's hard to believe that ETs would step out and be like, hey, could you stop shooting us down, please? Like, is that okay? Because it's kind of annoying. And Greer says that they're actually concerned about our hostility. Like I said, they're waiting for us to evolve out of this primal ape-like aggression where we just love to blow things up and go to war, okay? It sounds almost like, and he said it there, that like we're like the little brother. It reminds me of like looking after a toddler. Like, you need patience, right? They're going to be drawing on the walls, throwing shit. You're going to give them food. They're going to launch it out their high chair, but you got to have patience because they're young, they're little, they don't understand yet. And it seems like that is what could be going on here. And it just makes me wonder, like, what is their patience like? I mean, I don't know how long I could look after a toddler before I'd just be like, all right, fuck this. You know, I can't do this anymore because my walls are covered in shit. So, you know, that's something to worry about. But if their patience does run out, is that what Colonel Carl Nell has referred to as catastrophic disclosure, where they finally just say, all right, enough's enough. Stop fucking around. Stop throwing your food out of the high chair and go to bed. All right, you're doing what you're told now. Go to bed. Naughty humans. We can't stop that. And that is what Colonel has said. He has said that in the event that, you know, the cover up of the existence of NHI can't be covered up any longer, we're going to get catastrophic disclosure. And that's why they're doing a controlled one, because perhaps they know that there is an intervention coming, because we just love nuclear weapons and blowing each other up. So look, if that's what happens, hopefully it's a good thing. And Reese and I actually talked about this on the podcast this week. So like I said, check that out after this. It's a long one, but he's got a really cool, interesting story, a story that he actually told for the very first time on my podcast as well. But we did get into this kind of conversation about like, what are UFOs, and, you know, just a real free-flowing conversation. And he actually said that, you know, they could be so far ahead of us in their development, which I'm sure they are, that their consciousness has just expanded so much that like aggression and conflict has kind of been like bred out of them, and it's not even a part of their psyche. Like they don't have that in them. And if the commonly accepted idea that these craft are linked to consciousness, and, you know, perhaps that's why we reverse engineer our own, because if it's ties to your consciousness and you need to have kind of like a certain level of awareness and consciousness to even pilot these craft, maybe that's why we build our own, because the ones that we retrieve we can't use because we have an ape-like consciousness. And, you know, if this is the case, it does support Stephen Greer's story about ETs waiting for us to catch up and stop trying to kill each other before they introduce themselves on a wider scale, because we need to kind of wake up, stop killing each other, relax, no one's going to hurt you, and then we can kind of join all of the other life that's going on around us. But for now, we're stuck in the kids' playpen just so we don't harm anybody. Some last couple of things that Greer said is that with this disclosure process, he's saying that we need to offer them amnesty. And he said, despite like the horrific crimes, you know, people have been taken out, silenced, harassed, embezzlement of the American government and economy, he said, up to like trillions of dollars. Maybe that's why the Pentagon keeps failing an audit ever since they started being audited. But, you know, for this group to come out as smoothly as possible, like realistically, we can't be too hostile. You know, it's never gonna go smooth if you know, figuratively, we just go in there guns blazing, trying to rip the floor up, right? If we want this to go smooth and we want this to happen positively, we need to accept that there are people who have done terrible things. And I'm not saying let them off entirely, and I don't think he is either, but a lot of the people have been caught up in this, and that they didn't create it, they kind of inherited it. And a lot of the people who got brought into these programs didn't actually even realize that what they're in is like illegal or unethical until they're so deep in it that it's then like impossible to get out, or impossible to get out and talk about it and keep your life. Okay, that's what all these people talk about. You know, I often use the argument like, how is this, like, what's all this shit about breaking NDAs and all this kind of stuff if what you're breaking an NDA on is illegal in the first place? Like, it doesn't make sense. But it's become very clear that, like, it's not really the NDA they're worried about. It's the bullet in the head. Okay, that's like a real threat for these guys. And I think that is the genuine concern for some of these people coming forward, i.e. David Grush, etc. Now, before we move on from Greer, because of this and what we've spoken about so far, and we have a lot more to get into, I want to make a claim that's kind of rogue, but I'm curious. And look, I could be totally wrong here, but I want to put it out there just in case. I'm going to call that Stephen Greer and Lou Elizondo are actually on the same team, and that they're kind of playing this counter opponent of each other publicly to perhaps hide this effort, or perhaps even counter intel the people who are actually in charge. Because Lou is counterintelligence, right? Maybe he is playing his game back against these guys. hey, it's just a thought, because what's about to happen is essentially what both of these people have been working towards. It's what they've been talking about. And the whole time they've kind of been calling each other liars and idiots. But what they've both said is about to happen at the time that they've both said it's going to happen. And look, let's be real. If somehow out of this, one of these guys turns out to be a liar and completely wrong, like, they're going to have so much egg on their face that they'll need to delete the internet access forever. But honestly, I don't see that. It really feels like a lot of these talking heads have all been kind of engaging and are converging on the same team with a coordinated attack to reveal the truth. I know, wild. So let's move into the next section. We're going to be talking about Ross Coulthart today. So this just broke yesterday. Ross Coulthart, he aired a little kind of snippet, and we're going to be looking at all of it, about a story that's airing at 8 p.m. American Eastern Time on Saturday. So if you're Australian, that's about 11 a.m. Sunday morning. And he's got a whistleblower who worked firsthand as a helicopter pilot in a crash retrieval program, okay? And they're not just bringing him on with his testimony. They have video evidence of this crash retrieval and the craft. And this has been intentionally done at this date and time. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But this could honestly flip the whole world on its head. All right, check this out.
It's a huge story. It's one I've been working on for over 2 years. Are we alone? And the short answer, we're not. I'm going to tell you about a story that will, I suspect, rock Washington and possibly have a huge influence on a lot of people around the world who've wanted answers to that big question for many, many years. This week, we are presenting definitive evidence from first-hand whistleblowers, people who have operated within the legacy crash retrieval program, that is, retrievals of non-human craft. Principal informant is a former, very well-respected Tier 1 operator, highly trained Tier 1 military operator, trained at the elite levels of the US military. Verified and testified to by 3 other witnesses. The account that he gives of what he saw on what he euphemistically refers to as the range, the retrieval of non-human craft, is backed by 2 of his colleagues who were there with him. This is going to be a groundbreaking story. And yes, we're running it right before the inauguration because we want to send a message. The message is, it's time for the public to be told the truth. The government, or sections of the government, have been knowingly, intentionally lying to the public for years. And if they want to fight, they can have one, because people are now prepared to come forward. This week, you're going to hear from a first-hand whistleblower. Tell me about the moment when you realized that you were involved in a retrieval of non-human technology, alien tech.
And then just visually looking at the object on the ground, you could tell that it was extraordinary and anomalous. It was not human.
How close did you get?
I got within 150 feet of this object.
What did you see?
I saw an egg, a white egg. There's no engine, there was no thermal signature.
How did you know that that egg-shaped object was non-human in origin?
Visually, after seeing all kinds of things in my past, it was clearly something that was ridiculously looking. It's inconsistent with anything I'd ever seen before. I can also tell you that the reaction by my team, we all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary. I will tell you that during this process over the last couple of years, it's been confirmed to me by ranking members of the UAP task force that what we were working with that night was in fact NHI, and it was not a unique experience.
We've been able to check their credentials and their service with people at the very top of the national security establishment and inside the Congress. We know that their evidence has already been presented to the Pentagon's UFO Investigation Office, ARO. the all-domain anomaly resolution office. We know that evidence has been given by a primary whistleblower to the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence. Congress already has this information. We've made sure that our whistleblower follows the proper form to ensure that the proper authorities are notified and alerted to what the significances of this witness has to say.
Wild. And just by the way, if you don't see a video there, it's because I got copyrighted, but I think we should be fine. So look, that was a helicopter pilot, Jake Barber, who retrieved an egg-shaped craft, and he says it was extraordinary, it was clearly anomalous, and obviously not human, like nothing he's ever seen, right? He was within 150 feet of this egg-shaped craft. He said there was no engine, no thermal signature, and he said it was later confirmed to him by his superiors that this was non-human intelligence in origin, and this is not unique, okay? Now, there's going to be video evidence of this crash retrieval, and I've got a little clip of that video. I think it's that video. We'll talk about that in a minute, which I'm going to play. But it's interesting how this is all happening right at the inauguration of Donald Trump, right? The president, the man who has said he is vowing for transparency and disclosure, right? This is a coordinated attack that I feel like Donald Trump potentially has a direct hand in, or Elon Musk or something. There is coordination here, clearly. And also, look, just a side note, apparently, like just in the nick of time, a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel has been struck. Like, isn't it crazy how after 2 years of war and trying so hard to stop war and come to an agreement, that they managed to finally do it right before the guy who's like openly said, like, look, if I get in charge and this is still happening, there's going to be hell to pay. Like, we're not doing this. So, like, just think about that. While they've been, like, pumping your head on the news, mainstream news, full of propaganda about, like, the evil Hamas and all the hostages that need to be freed and they're fighting for and allowing people to be killed to release these hostages, meanwhile, they're in boardrooms with the leaders of Hamas trying to strike a deal. Like, I don't think anybody was in boardrooms with Hitler trying to make deals. Like, do you see the difference here? This is like it's not a fake war, but it is like a fake war. Like, it's happening, but they're in boardrooms trying to strike deals. So, like, over the last few years, as they've been attempting to stop the war with the leaders of terrorist organizations, and like they've been in boardrooms going, nah, couldn't come to a deal today. Guess we'll get back to killing each other. Like, it's disgusting. It is outrageous. Like, the way that they put it to us on the TV is like they're doing everything they can to fight terrorism and kill, destroy the axis of evil. But they're having meetings with these people. Like, they make it sound like they're trying to kill them at any cost, but they're actually coming to deals and, couldn't make a deal today, back to war. Like, it is a joke. And don't forget, America are allegedly sending $40 million a week to the Taliban, according to Tim Dillon, and he created a bill to stop this happening, and it was rejected. Okay, we covered that last week. I won't go into it anymore. I'm sorry. I got a little bit wound up and off track there. So let's get back to what we're actually talking about here. So since the promo for this story aired, Ross Coulthart went on Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast and made some claims that kind of back up what Stephen Greer has said. And yeah, like I said, this is all happening in like the last 48 hours. So like I said, I've been doing overtime. Here we go.
President Eisenhower once warned that there was a danger in the military-industrial complex. And the irony, Don, is that it was probably President Eisenhower who was responsible for instituting the legal basis for the cover-up in the first place. And what he failed to realize was that the monster he would create would keep the secret for another 80 years. It's just incredible that this has been kept secret for as long as it has.
It's interesting that he mentions Eisenhower because it's exactly what Greer said at the start of the episode. It has been talked about in like UFO culture a lot, the way he warned about the military-industrial complex. But look, let's just quickly check out that throwback.
It'd be a shock to the world and the American public to find out that the constitutional government in the United States since the late 1950s have been basically pushed aside on this issue since the late Eisenhower years.
You see what I'm saying? Like, this is coordinated. I've never seen Greer and Ross even mention each other's name, let alone like talk to each other or anything like that. And you know, Ross talks to a lot of people in this space. These, like, it's actually weird that they've never even spoke, but they're doing the same thing at the same time. This is coordinated, okay? I'm calling it. Next clip.
The thing that I would recommend is that there should be a reckoning. This has to be done in public. There has to be transparency. The public has to see accountability. If you're looking for the deep state, if you're hunting for the bad guys who've done entirely the wrong thing and committed crimes and overspent the public's money, this is where you need to look. And I'm not saying this. The people I'm talking to in the program who so desperately want to testify, they're the people saying this. They want you and your dad to scream from the rooftops about this and get answers.
There you go. Again, Ross is echoing the things that Greer has said. Greer has said that his whistleblowers feel stuck on the other side because they know they can't come out, but they so desperately want to because they know that this is unethical and it's kind of holding our entire civilization back by suppressing this technology and information. But they know that coming out is potentially risking their life, and people have lost their life by doing it. And, you know, I guess with this kind of technology, like, who knows what kind of capabilities they have to remove somebody's life, right? If this is alien technology, like, there could be ways that we don't even realize or think about that are potentials for these people to be losing their life, and they might know about them. And that's why they're so scared, because they know the capabilities, the reach, and the potential of these rogue organizations. Okay, so I mentioned that there's a clip of this crash retrieval. This video, I found it on X. It's an alleged snippet, and I'll show you it. It's taken from the chopper that Jake Barber was piloting at the time. Okay, I'm just going to play it, and then we'll talk about it.
That were exotic, and we know they were classified craft, and we recovered them and took them back to where they go. We did recover things that were exotic in nature in the sky, and we know they were classified craft, and we recovered them and took them back to where they go. We did.
Okay, so let me just drop this. Oh no, I'm coming, I swear. Okay, I want to get that clip up again. Hold on, I will get it. There we go. All right. So this, I'm unsure about this clip, and I'll tell you why. So the reason why I thought it was worth bringing in, hang on, let me just fix this up a little bit. I thought it was worth bringing in because, one, that's obviously Jake Barber's voice that we can hear over the top, right? And he's not saying anything that we hear in that interview. So it does seem legit. It's got Don Jr.'s podcast label on the bottom left. It's got the News Nation tag at the top right. And it's got Don Jr.'s Rumble stuff on there as well. So it's got like all this branding. It's got the voice. It's a helicopter with a cable potentially picking up something. But the reason why I'm a bit unsure about it, unless they're going to be bringing more evidence they haven't talked about, is in the clip, Jake Barber says that this craft was retrieved at nighttime, and that when he looked at it, it was just so wild, and, you know, he knew straight away, like, what he was looking at was not of this world, that he had to take his night vision goggles off. He said he took them off and he kind of like rubbed his eyes and looked at it again to, you know, see if he was seeing things, and then put his night vision goggles back on. You do not need night vision goggles to look there. That is broad daylight. So I'm not sure what that is. Hopefully we're going to get more context to this video. But yeah, look, I just wanted to point that out because I found the clip. It looked legit, but then I also remembered that detail that kind of makes me wonder what is actually going on here. Okay. So again, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm trying to tell you to think, and whatever you do think of, let me know in the comments. Now, where have we seen an egg-shaped craft before? This is the, you know, my mind, I'm weird, okay? My mind just saying like naturally draws patterns and tries to pull things together. And the first thing I thought about is, where have egg-shaped crafts turned up in UFO lore in the past. And the first thing that popped to mind was Lonnie Zamora. So this is a case that happened in 1964 in New Mexico, where a police officer heard like a giant bang or a roar while he was driving kind of, out in the Mesa Plains of New Mexico. And he kind of turned off, went towards what he saw. What he thought he saw was an upside down car. So like, a bad car crash, a car's rolled, it's on its back. And as he approached, he realized that it was actually like a rounded object that looked like white aluminium. And from his account, two people that looked like either small adults or tall kids wearing white overalls were standing outside of the craft. And there's not too much detail between that and when he says that it quickly took off and ejected this kind of blue-orange flame or sort of energy below it. And then it left these markings on the ground, which are kind of hard to see in this photo, but that is the Lonnie Zamora story. Just a quick little history lesson, that there are people here that are new, that there are people here that only started looking into this stuff because of the drones, and they're about to realize that there's a whole history about this. There's a whole history here, okay? It's been going on for a long time. What I find interesting about that, though, is it is kind of described as flames in the lore, and that almost suggests it's like a combustion engine. But again, maybe that is just Lonnie Zamora describing what he saw with whatever he knew or the best way he could explain it at the time. And, a jet or a combustion engine was probably the most high-tech thing back then. But if it's true, if it's real, I can't prove it. I think it probably wasn't a jet engine, okay? It was probably something we don't even understand. So, as I said, that's there's a whole history there, and we're gonna keep rolling because there's a lot to get into today. The next section is Jeremy Corbell. He's also come out with some really interesting claims over the last few days. He's brought out new evidence. He's angry. He's got a new video that's come out that it's kind of getting called the new gimbal because it looks and sort of behaves a little bit like the gimbal, but it's I would say it's a bit clearer and there's a lot more going on. There's more to it. And we've got the person who filmed it talking about it. So I've got a clip of the video. I've put a side-by-side comparison with the old gimbal footage as well. But I've clipped this up. The original video is about 10 minutes. I'll try and remember to link it. There's going to be a lot of links in today's description. So if I miss one and you really want to see it, just let me know in the comments. I'll dig it up and I'll chuck it in there for you. But this is a video filmed in 2008 by Sergeant Matt Davis of the US Navy. And I just want to point out before I show you the footage, I do think he mentions it, but just in case, there is a dot in the middle. That's not anything in the sky. That's the reticle of the infrared night vision goggles or binoculars that he's filming this through. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear, but check this out.
Tell me your name, what you were doing in Iraq, your unit, what your role was.
Matt Davis, United States Marine Corps. The unit was 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I was a scout. I didn't laze it to see the exact how many meters it was away, but to me observing it, I'm going to say it's probably about 200 meters. I kind of see something raise up, an object kind of come off the floor from that distance. And I was like, well, what is that? And I was talking to myself, and I would probably say it went about 25 meters off the ground. And I seen it sway to the left, stop, and then sway back to the right. Maybe within from that center point that it raised up to that 20 meters, it swayed about 30 to 50 meters to the left. And then coming back to that center point it originally raised up from, it went another 30 to the right and came back and started elevating upward. And I was like, this is weird. What the hell is this? I grabbed my camera. I had a little black Pelican case, popped it open, and it started filming. So I was looking through my camera screen and seen it raise up and keep continually raising, and could tell it wasn't a plane or a helicopter. It was kind of a consistent speed shooting upward, not super fast, but it was just almost kind of like a floating object. And it just, there was nothing out in that area that we would have been operating. If there was, we would have known about it. Definitely the enemy didn't have any kind of helicopters or anything, or any helos or aircrafts. I knew it was 100% worthy of filming a video. I was like, I knew it was something out of the ordinary. So I filmed it. you know, as I was filming, I was like, oh, this has this shape, or I wasn't thinking that. I was like, oh, this is just a strange object I'm seeing come off the ground and, you know, swayed to the left, you know, to the right, and then went upward and kind of didn't go straight up, but it kind of like veered a little bit and kind of, you know, almost like a back and forth motion. I just kept kind of going up, and I went so high.
So yeah, there's that. Another piece of the pie that's just broke in the last couple of days. And, you know, I'm sure there will be people already that are complaining that it's not a 4K up-close video of a craft with aliens having an orgy inside. But honestly, just have a day off of Twitter, go outside, touch some grass, and if you can't support people coming forward with this kind of stuff, like, just get out of here, honestly. But look, that's not all from Corbell. The trailer for UFO Revolution Season 2 has just dropped, and he's pissed. He's kind of been pissed already, if you've been like sort of paying attention to him, but now he's really pissed. And I normally wouldn't just play like a random trailer for a UFO series, because I mean, there's tons of them, but there's a story here, and we're going to get into it. I wouldn't just play this for no reason, all right? So I'm going to play... I've actually cut the trailer down a little bit, so this is kind of a shorter version. I'll leave links to it in the description. But yeah, there's just so much to get into today. So this is a short version of the UFO Revolution trailer.
Releasing the jellyfish UFO has put a target on my back.
This is a potential threat.
There are 2 Department of Justice investigations. We've made public some information that people didn't want out.
I wouldn't take any chances if I were you right now, because you've got a bullseye on you.
The closer you get to the truth with this thing, the more pushback you get. I think people are going to tell the truth. If they don't, then I will.
There is a document that will be entered into the congressional record today about Immaculate Constellation.
Congress just lied to the American public. It is immeasurably dangerous. She knew it was a lie. So you want to explain it while we're recording? Because we're recording right now. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm fucking going to look everybody in the fucking eye. Whoever fucking lied, I'm going to say it in front of everybody.
We're dealing with a subject that is so explosive and so revolutionary. And anyone who's managing an empire that has a stake in keeping its power structure, they're not going to play nice.
When you're talking about people coming forward and those people no longer existing, that's a problem.
So you're saying that people have died in it?
Jeremy was pissed, and like I said, if you've kind of been paying attention, he kind of got made a fool of with the last congressional hearing. Like, he was hyping it up big time. Like, he was putting out tweets saying, like, we're about to change the world. Like, let's go UFO. Like, you know, he kind of got made a fool of, because we all know that at the end of that hearing, like, it was pretty... If you pay attention to this topic, that hearing was kind of just like, oh, okay. Nothing new. It may be interesting for someone who's never heard about it before. But yeah, so he's saying that not only did he provide evidence to Congress before that hearing that was apparently supposed to, like, it had been agreed that it was going to be discussed during the hearing, and it wasn't. And he also took, prior to this hearing, with that evidence, an unnamed whistleblower in unannounced, which, you know, I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but, you know, anyway, who cares what I have to say? He took an unnamed whistleblower to these representatives, and this person gave a first-hand testimony. So I think someone who is like a first-hand person involved in these programs gave their own testimony, and Jeremy supplied this written evidence, I think, surrounding Immaculate Constellation, and it was just straight up ignored. Okay, here's another clip about Jeremy talking about that, and I've thrown in another clip about of Nancy Mace on top, because it's not clear who he's talking about, but in that trailer you heard him say she was lying, and then he's like on the phone going, you know, come on then, tell the truth. But like, he doesn't drop names on like who. But anyway, check this out.
People like, we did it. We're going to get this stuff on congressional record. Firsthand whistleblower, in the sense that they were exposed to this information. We're all excited. And then it just, you guys will see, it just changes as the hearing goes on. Who is telling them that? Berger came out the next day and said that he was warned not to mention me or the truth about what happened that day because of a national because of a security issue. That's the way he said it. But I know a little bit more. Yeah, dude, it was ominous. It was bizarre. It was controlled. It wasn't joyous. It was a setup. This whole thing was a setup. That's my personal perspective from what I went through for those many, many months prior So who is telling them that? These are intelligence agencies. There's one in particular that was represented, and they're standing there in their suits, and they're calling out members of Congress to go sidebar in the middle of the hearing. You see them go up to Nancy Mace. I hope there's lip readers. I got some great videos. I'm sitting right there. What could Representative Burchett twice be saying to Nancy Mace up there in her podium in the dais? What could he be saying? What did Representative Luna say when she went up there being like, if you can read her lips, right? So it's like everybody was kind of caught off guard. There was an ominous feeling with a lot of the staffers too, like they're looking you right in the eye. They know what I've done over the months. They know what the plan is. And then they just look at you with these blank eyes because they knew something I didn't, which is that they were going to run this their way. They were going to do it their way. They're going to say whatever untruths they wanted. And it was a real shocker for me. I never saw it unfold in real time like I did that day.
So yeah, Jeremy Corbell got swindled at the last Congress hearing. And, you know, who is that guy whispering in Nancy Mace's ear? And, you know, I think the whole thing, especially with the evidence that Jeremy supplied, it was kind of talked about immediately after that the first page of this Immaculate Constellation document, which was actually supplied by Jeremy and not Michael Schellenberger, which Nancy Mace said during the hearing, that the first page got taken out and like redacted. And I think the reason at the time was kind of like, because it was just kind of Jeremy plugging like his Instagram and, he does kind of cop it a little bit for putting himself out there as the guy. So that was the story. But according to Jeremy, there was evidence there that didn't get discussed. And in that clip that I overlaid there, it looks like that guy comes with a bunch of papers and he kind of pulls off one and he's maybe saying like, we're not talking about this one, but you can have these. Look, I could be totally off the mark there, but, who is that guy? Does anyone know? Let me know in the comments. So I'm not sure if like that's who he's pissed at these suits in the background that are manipulating the agenda from all the work that had gone in prior, or if it's like Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna. Like, I don't know who he's referring to. It could be all of them. I don't know, but I'm sure these kind of things will come to light over time. So I've got one more clip of Corbell, and this has really caused, I wouldn't even say mixed reaction. Well, I'm looking at Twitter, right? And look, everyone on Twitter is just a negative fuck. So everyone's upset about this on Twitter. And in it, though, he does refer to a new whistleblower with game-changing information. And I think, this is just my guess, that it's probably the same person who he's referred to in the videos we just watched, who went in and gave this testimony that's just been ignored. We've never heard about it. But it's not totally clear. And he then goes on to talk about something very interesting. And he's not the only one. I'll play it and then we'll get into it. Things to get into there. Obviously, the name dropping of Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of RO. We'll get into that. But the obvious one that I'm sure you can probably guess why this has rubbed people up the wrong way is the theatrics, right? The close-ups, the tense music, the long pauses. People hate this, okay? But I want to say that, like, everybody is different, right? Jeremy Corbell is an artist. He's a filmmaker, if you couldn't tell. He's eccentric and he's expressive, and this bothers people. And, like, in a way, I can understand it because the theatrics remind people of, like, the X-Files. And a lot of people have worked super hard to bring this topic to light and to the public and steer it away from like the stigma and the drama of those kind of shows. It's the same reason that I had a problem with the Manhattan Alien Abduction show on Netflix, which I reviewed on this channel. It's the same kind of thing, right? A lot of people who are not artists, like the more rigorous academics who enjoy reading peer-reviewed papers and reviewing legislation, like boring people, they don't like that, okay? But we need them, okay? They are great at doing what they do. They're the investigators. They're like they do the hard yards, I would say. But people like Jeremy Corbell help turn it into a visual presentation that is well and easily digested for people. But I do think he could tone down the theatrics a little bit. So just because like Jeremy Corbell has a different approach doesn't mean he has different intentions. He is a human being who is striving for the same goal as everyone else that's in this space. And I think just people need to have a little bit more understanding and stop throwing around the word grifter. I hate that word so much. And it seems to be the new buzzword to insult anybody who just like has a different opinion to the person who's using it. And look, let's be real. This is mainly happening on X because as much as I love free speech and I am an advocate for free speech, that doesn't mean it's not an absolute cesspit of idiots. But that's not a reason to censor it, right? That's a reason to educate people and be able to identify these idiots and to expand your awareness and expand your consciousness and not allow someone with a knockoff NFT anime girl display picture upset you for talking absolute dribble on the internet, okay? This is the greatest cover-up of all time. And the people who want to come out and call people grifters and liars, and again, especially when you've got cartoon display pictures, if you're going to imply that you know that someone is a grifter and is a liar, put some evidence on the table, okay? Because, as I said, greatest cover-up of all time, unless you're part of the cover-up or you're in some kind of position where you know stuff, you don't know who's lying, okay? That this whole space is conjecture. So I just can't relate with or respect anybody who wants to get online and start pointing fingers and calling people liars, especially when you have no evidence, especially when your display picture is an anime girl and you don't even use your real name, okay? Like, if you want people to actually listen to what you say, maybe use your actual photo, get a verified account, and change your name, because otherwise no one gives a fuck what you have to say. Okay, sorry, I got a little bit heated there. I'm gonna just take a little drink of water. We get a little wound up sometimes. I'm sorry, I'm human. So the other half of that video that I wanted to go into is that Corbell name dropped the former head of RO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, as someone who has blatantly lied to the public. And he also says that if he reveals his whistleblower, it'll reveal who he's talking to, and I'll come back to that in a sec. So, the fact that RO have lied to the public, like, again, if you pay attention, you would sort of already know this. This has been kind of obvious because Tim Gallaudet, who testified at the last congressional hearing, I'm not sure if it was at the hearing or just around that time, but he said that before that hearing, he was invited to RO when Sean Kirkpatrick was still working there. And he thought he was being invited, this government agency who's about UFO disclosure and transparency is inviting me in, and I'm going to have a chance to tell my story, and I'm going to, bring this to light. He said he got there and they spent like 2 hours just trying to explain to him why what he actually saw is just parallax and don't worry about it. And the fact that it got completely erased and wiped from the Navy's most sensitive email system it's nothing to, don't worry about that. Look somewhere else. Okay, so Jeremy isn't alone. Both of the people that we've already looked at today, so Ross Coulthart and Stephen Greer, have had their say about people in the government who are part of this cover-up. And it seems like their days are numbered. It really does. But let's look at this clip from Ross, who also is backing up what Jeremy says.
And that's exactly what my friend, the whistleblower, Jake, has done. He's done entirely the proper thing. These guys are patriots. They've gone to the Pentagon. They've told the Pentagon what they knew. And you know what the Pentagon did? It covered it up. That's what they did. They lied to you. They lied to you, to the American public, and to the Congress. And worst of all, Don, they've lied to presidents. But more importantly, if I was your dad, I would be summoning Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former director of RO, putting him in front of a blooming judge and deposing him, and demanding that he tell the truth about what he was told by my whistleblowers, because I know the Pentagon has been lying. And I don't know why they're lying. I don't know what pretext they're lying on. I don't know what flimsy national security excuse they're using, but this time they've gone way too far.
And that's not all. Let's check out this other clip from Stephen Greer.
The National Defense Authorization Act, which had a provision for safe harbor, which is amnesty for these kinds of figures, was passed unanimously by the Senate. And that got passed overwhelmingly by the Senate, but it was ripped apart in the House of Representatives by just a handful of bad actors who I'm pretty certain are on in the back pocket of these legacy, covert, and rather disturbing programs. We know who they are, and we're watching that very carefully.
I mean, no wonder the guy resigned from RO. Like, he's literally been called out and caught lying to the public. And, you know, he took in whistleblowers who are risking their lives to bring this information out and who gave him their confidence to share their story under the condition that, you know, they were helping and they were contributing. And then this guy just came out in public and turned around and said, "Nah, nothing to see here. We haven't got any evidence at all." That's what he said. He said there is no evidence. So you could understand why that has pissed a lot of people off and why he's probably resigned. But the big question is the new head of RO, John Kozlowski, just more of the same? And if you remember, he had his own little hearing that was, I don't think he went under oath, which is a question in itself. Where it did seem like more of the same. But apparently this guy has a good rep, but I don't know. Time will tell. So let's move on to the next section now. We're going to be looking at Randy Anderson. So this is yet another Green Beret whistleblower who's just come out earlier this week on the Jesse Michels show. And this was only like 4 or 5 days ago. But with everything else that's happened, like, it already feels like old news. So I almost already feel like you guys have probably already heard about and seen this, but I'm sure that there are a lot of you that haven't, because you all don't have all day to watch YouTube like I do. So I've collected it all for you. So I'll give you a quick background on him before we go through the clips. His name's Randy Anderson. He is coming forward telling a story that happened in 2014 when he and another Green Beret soldier were taken down into a DUM, or a deep underground military base. And he wasn't familiar with this facility. I don't think he'd been there before. He certainly hadn't been that deep underground before. He made that clear. Yeah, and he wasn't sure why he was there. So, look, the testimony's crazy. I've clipped up, and it's about an 1.5 hour episode, by the way. I'll link it in the description, don't worry. But I've clipped up just a couple of small bits to kind of, you know, show you the most wild parts. But you should go watch the whole story because it's really interesting. So let's check out the first clip.
Okay, so you're going underground. Did you know that there was an underground complex at Crane before this? Okay.
Absolutely not. Nope, wasn't briefed on it, didn't know about it, didn't have
So what's going through your mind at this point? You're going down underground in an elevator with these random instructors.
Well, at the end of the day, man, I'm a soldier and I do what I'm told, so I'm just following orders and just going and, okay, we're going to go here, go stand there, do this. And me and the other guy were just being quiet and, you know, not showing any emotion as we're trained to do. So I remember the first thing that stood out to me was that it was significantly more modern than everything up top.
At any point, did you say, "Hey, why are we down here?"
Hell
Or just
no.
kind of, yeah.
And you wouldn't. You know, you wouldn't. It's not the way things are done. So you just do. You know,
totally.
You just do the thing. I ended up going through another security checkpoint, which that was odd because we had already gone through a significant level of security. And so I thought that was odd. This was more like going into a skiff. After that, we moved on down another hallway and got into an area that had a marking on the wall and said off-world technology.
Said off-world technology.
That, yeah. Could have been a setup. It could have been something just thrown together.
Sure.
But it could have been something that's just how they had it.
But it said off-world technology.
Yeah. That obviously immediately started to feel what the fuck is going on, right? I don't know how else to describe it. Like I said, the lighting was different. The walls had like maybe I would assume some type of Faraday material. Like everything was just a higher level of detail. You know? The first object was a metallic basketball-sized sphere, and it was above a podium, and it looked like it was just levitating above the podium. And I remember at one point like trying to angle myself, like, what? How is that?
Do you think it could have been some sort of magnetic levitation? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
But it's just levitating there.
It was just levitating. Then what stood out to me was the way the metal looked. It looked unnatural. The energy in the room, man, was just different.
What was the feeling you got looking at this thing?
Just an unease, uneasy, uncomfortable, ominous. That's the best way I can describe it. So we spent a little time there, and then we went to the next object, and it was another metallic object, very, very strange looking, same type of vibe. It's hard to describe because it didn't get a full view of it, but it looked like something you could like reach in and grab and pick up. And maybe it was something that would, you could put on your arm, or something that would have to use it with their arm. That's the best way I can describe it. And it had like a crystal type of display screen. Or I don't know if it was a display screen. It was a square, rectangular, looked like it would potentially be a display screen. And it was sitting, it was not levitating. It was sitting on a table. And at that point, like I'm looking at it and it almost looked like a mirage type of effect. And in that, above that display screen were these hieroglyphic symbols that I started to see appear.
Anything going through your mind at this point as you're seeing?
Yeah, I was shitting bricks. I mean, yeah, it was terrifying. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is for. I'm just trying to just act like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Now, again, these are long clips. I'm kind of letting the clips tell the story here. So if you don't see anything, it's because it's been removed for copyright. But, you know, I've had a look around and I've seen some people using Jesse Michels clips and quite extended versions. And I've kind of cut that up, you know, to try and avoid the copyright because that's not what I want to do, obviously. But I'm short on time. I'm trying to pull it all together for you. So I will leave a link to this episode in the video description. You should absolutely go check it out. I mean, if you're following me and you're not following Jesse Michels, take a look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, you gotta be up to date with that guy because he has his finger on the pulse. Now, we've got one more clip to go through, but those hieroglyphics that he says that he saw, right? He says that they looked very similar to the ones that Danny Sheehan describes that he saw on the side of a UFO craft that he got to see a photo of when he had the opportunity to look through the original Project Blue Book files. Now, Jesse Michels has an entire episode with Danny Sheehan, and you can hear that story from Danny, and his whole history is just wild. I mean, the guy, he's seen some shit and he knows some people, okay? And he's a public interest and constitutional lawyer, okay? So he's a smart guy. He's in high places. Now, he said that these symbols look the same as what Danny shows, and I don't think I've got Danny's symbols in the clips because you should go and watch the video to see them. But at the start of this next clip, he is kind of referencing that episode that he watched of Jesse's. So let's check this out.
I saw that show, and what he had drawn is very close to what I seen. And also, I want to touch on something else that this correlates with. Documentary that I saw on YouTube about DMT.
Yeah.
And these guys were doing experiments with DMT, and they found that everybody was seeing these same symbols when they shined a laser a certain way and kind of diffracted the laser.
Yep.
In a way that you do like the double slit experiment.
Yes.
And in the diffraction, they saw these symbols, and those symbols are the same.
When you're looking at these hieroglyphics, you obviously don't have the context of the Danny Sheehan interview or whatever.
Nothing at that point.
So what's the first thing that goes through your head as to like what this is?
Well, first thing is like, am I hallucinating or am I seeing that? I was squinting and looking at it, and I think even one of the guys who was with us had asked me, like, because he saw me looking at it, and asked me if, like, everything all right? Or I don't remember exactly what he said, but he kind of inquired to why I was looking at it, and I was like, oh yeah, and I just kind of brushed it off and, you know, forgot about it. But I mean, not only did I see the symbols, but they were like changing to different symbols. So there was a movement to them as well. So they weren't just like static.
A holographic display, or like the technology showing it, did it feel prosaic, or did it feel like just something you'd never seen before as far as the display itself?
Holographic sure could have been, but it was very crisp. You know, like where I feel like the holographic technology I've seen at like CES or whatever, it's almost like kind of hard to,
like, you can see that it's a light.
You can tell that it's not, that it's not a solid object, or not a physical object. Yeah.
Yes, you could see in that case that it was like a light display, and in this case, does it almost feel like it's like part of reality itself?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Wow. Very strange, man. Like this. I mean, I hadn't been exposed to anything like this before that or since. So,
and they didn't say, hey, so what you're about to experience is kind of trippy. They just took you into this room.
They just and maybe that was part of the point. It could have absolutely just been something that triggered on a evaluation for me and this guy, and they brought us out there to see if we would react to the technology. That could have been a part of it.
Do you ask them at any point?
Well, so after a moment, I mean, have a moment to like kind of drink that in, and then they were talking about, and they were kind of talking to us and each other. It felt just weird, man. Almost like they were purposely making it awkward.
Yeah, wild. So the hieroglyphics that Randy saw, he claims they match what Danny Sheehan saw on the side of a crashed UFO, but they also match the symbols that are seen when you look through a diffracted laser shined on a wall after ingesting DMT. And look, just quickly, this is, again, something we covered a long time ago on Weird Week. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe because, you know, you want to stay on top of this stuff. And if you were subscribed, you already know all about it. But I will give you a quick little recap on what that is about. So a man named Danny Goler, he went on the Danny Jones podcast to promote his upcoming documentary. And I actually had a look the other day. I don't think it's out yet. If it is and anyone knows, let me know because I do really want to watch it. But he has done like rigorous testing and he claims that literally everybody sees these symbols after ingesting DMT and looking in a diffracted laser shined on a wall, and that he's tested it with hundreds of people. And some of the people, some of his test subjects, he wouldn't even tell them what to look for. Some of them he would tell them like, oh, you'll see a picture of a bird, and they'll go, no, I can't see a bird, but I can see these symbols. So like he has like done the work apparently. And according to him, it's like a 100% strike rate that when you take DMT, you see these symbols that look like code. I think he even describes it kind of like, you know, the classic Matrix code, but not green. Obviously it's red. And they're not English symbols. They're like these weird hieroglyphics that no one can really recognize. And, you know, what could this mean? Randy is saying these are the same symbols that he's seen on a UFO, on this out of this world technology, and that are visible through laser when you look at a wall on DMT. Like, does this leans into the whole simulation theory that Earth is like rendered and operated on some highly sophisticated biological computer, and this language is like the code that runs it. And are the people who are operating this craft, who have this language on it, are they responsible for operating the simulation? Is that why UFOs seem to like phase in and out of our reality? That's why they're so hard to capture on camera, and perhaps how they defy our understanding of physics because they write the code. Okay, they can write whatever code they want. I mean, it's extremely interesting. That's all conjecture, but all of these details are apparently lining up. And look, again, we've been talking about the convergence. Randy, what are you doing with Stephen Greer? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? All of these people who have never mentioned each other are all coming out. Okay, I found this photo on X. I don't have much more context for it, but Stephen Greer for a long time has been talking about a group of Green Berets that are coming out as whistleblowers, and he says it's all kicking off in the next 24 hours, probably by the time this is out. So yeah, wild. That's the end of the Randy segment. So we're going to get into our creator shout out now. Okay. And again, today's creator shout out is just as wild as everything that we've already looked at today. And that's because what I'm about to show you, nobody has ever seen this before. Okay. This literally came out this morning on TikTok, and it's by a TikToker who's known as UFOs around the world. And I'm just going to play you a little intro video first, and then we'll talk a bit more about it, and then we'll watch the video.
So these tapes are potentially going to put my life at risk. This is what I've been told with these tapes that I'm getting possession of. I've got possession of one of them. The person that's in this interview is no longer alive. He died in 2016. His wife wants the story out there. They tried to put the story out there in 2016. They was going to make a documentary. They was threatened, so they held off. These people that are giving me this, they don't want nothing to do with it. I've been speaking to them for over a year. This is the one where I said that I'm going to get the footage of the UFO going into the ocean and the ones dancing around. This is that source. I've reached back out to them. I said, this is the time. Things are going to come now. This is the time to drop this in my hands. So we did.
So this guy's name is Matt, and He's also known as UFOs Around the World, and he's probably, I think he is the biggest channel on TikTok that's talking about the UFO topic. So he does like daily videos, like just kind of talking about the news, essentially, just keeping people informed with like the breaking and what's going on within the topic. And over time with his channel, he's sort of developed connections and people who I guess have information and have decided to leak him information, which he has put out. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about in the past, and it has come true. So he's kind of put out things that he's heard before anyone else, and they have came to light. Now, this doesn't mean that what I'm about to show you is definitely true, but I think it's definitely worth paying attention to because it has been true in the past. And there's a bunch of other things that I'm going to talk about in a second that tie into it, right? So he has been told about 9 unseen interview tapes. They're all from 9 separate people being interviewed about the same incident. And it's discussing like UFOs and encounters with them and non-human intelligence and an underground base that's off the coast of Peru on an island called San Gallen, or Gallon, if you're going to pronounce it like a gringo. He has now been given one of these tapes, and he said he's going to begin releasing them all. I'm not sure if he has the other ones yet, but I spoke to Matt this morning. He gave me permission to share this video, and the full version is 15 minutes, and I've cut it down. I'll leave a link to his Discord in the show notes, his TikTok in the show notes below. So go and give him a follow. Like I said, he posts daily, and you can watch the full thing there if you want to as well. So I've put a quick short news report at the very start of this from Peru that's discussing the Nazca mummies and the tridactyl beings that have been discovered in Peru and made public over the last few years. And I've also got a little sort of montage just playing off to the side about these mummies and these beings that have been discovered because it's from the same place. And, you know, there's no confirmed link. This is all just me putting stuff together here, so don't take it too seriously. But it's from the same place. So, you know, maybe there's some dots that can be connected there. So I just think it's worth keeping in mind while we listen to this video. So this is going to go for about 10 minutes. It's in Spanish. Matt translated them himself, I'm assuming with like an app or something. I don't think it was like entirely perfect, but it's enough to get the idea of what's going on. So check this out. Okay, hang on a second, it's coming. Okay, it isn't. Give me 1 second. We're going to find this. I don't know why that's not working, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay.
De este hallazgo, de este extraordinario hallazgo.
There we go.
Porque los tridáctilos han estado conviviendo por los petroglifos y las telas los telares que se han hecho durante muchos años, miles de años atrás, con los humanos. Es decir, han estado los tridáctilos conviviendo en Japón, en México, vamos a decir, en África, en Asia, en Oceanía, en Centroamérica. Es decir, hay registros de tridáctilos, pero nunca antes se había encontrado un cuerpo tridáctilo. Y ahora hemos encontrado varios tipos de cuerpos tridáctilos, que habrá que estudiar, como dice el doctor Zúñiga, mucho más, porque no solamente requiere estudios de ADN, carbono 14 y otros más.
So folks, this is the island. It is, oh, there we go, where have we gone? It's on the west coast of Peru, San Gallen Island. This is where all the fishermen, all the witnesses, underground base apparently exists. They're told not to speak about this. I'm going to show you one of 9 interviews. This is 15 minutes long. I've done my best to do a translation. I think there might be 1 or 2 little errors there, but if anybody speaks Spanish and wants to help out in the comments on what might be maybe wrong, just please, and I'll pin it to the top. So yeah, this is the island. So this is the interview.
Estamos aquí con Luis Alberto, el cual nos va a contar la historia de lo que vivió con el tema Alien. Él vive cerca de la isla San Gallán, en Perú. Nos va a contar cómo ha cambiado esto su vida diaria, cómo sufrió acoso, entre otras cosas. Cuando quieras, Roberto.
Bueno, ante todo, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Luis Alberto. Yo soy proveniente de la provincia de Tacna, en Perú. Durante toda mi vida he vivido cerca al mar. No podría decir exactamente dónde, así que hacer esto no es fácil para mí porque, como dijo acá el amigo que venía a visitarnos, ha sido varios años ya que vengo sintiéndome así, que me vienen a buscar, que me piden información, y yo muy molesto con este tema. Quisiera poder pedirles que por favor ya no lo hagan porque afecta a mi familia y a mí. Más o menos hace 3 años tuve que vivir una experiencia muy fea, así que me es difícil hablar de esto. No quiero que se me malinterprete, no es que me moleste ser pescador, pero me da miedo ir al mar ahora. Y se me hace muy difícil hablar de esto en público porque...
¿Puedes contarnos un poco de cómo fue tu experiencia? Lo que nos contaste al respecto de lo que viste, cómo lo viste, a qué hora, todos los detalles que puedas recordar, entendiendo que es algo traumático, ¿no? Para ti.
A ver, esto fue hace un tiempo. Yo fui a la playa con mis amistades, fuimos aproximadamente a las... habrá sido 2 de la mañana. A esa hora sale buena pintadilla. Y grande, ¿no? Entonces nos reunimos con todos ellos como a las 2 de la mañana, agarramos el barco y ya desde ese momento había cosas extrañas porque el mar estaba muy calmo, muy calmo. Y generalmente no es tan calmo en esos momentos, ¿no? La madrugada, por el tema de la luna y la marea, el mar suele ser bastante fuerte. En mi experiencia, no, yo tengo años pescando y he visto que es muy movido el mar, pero especialmente esa noche todo estaba así como muy tranquilo, lo cual era muy raro. Yo, a eso de la hora de estar pescando con Julio, él me dice, ¿no? ¿Qué es eso que está atrás tuyo? Y yo le digo, no sé qué es eso. Y se veía pues como fuego, pero dentro del agua. Y yo había escuchado historias así antes, pero esta era la primera vez que veía algo así. Y le digo, no sé, eso debe ser fuego. Y él me dijo, no es de fuego. Así que, bueno, pasó un rato y después el fuego se fue hacia adelante del barco como quien mueve una antorcha. Pero la antorcha, el fuego no era así amarillo, naranjado, sino era como una luz intensa. Y se fue moviendo hacia adelante y se quedó inmóvil. Ahí fue cuando yo dije, oh, su madre, ya fuimos ya. Así que bueno, esa fue la forma de que lo vimos y después vino, esa fue la primera parte, ¿no? Después vino la parte peor. Se siente como un temblor en el barco que yo conozco, pues, el tiempo que estoy en el mar nunca se siente algo así. Pero esta vez todo tembló, así como temblor, pero más fuerte. Y la parte más interesante es que cuando sale esta luz del mar, no tenía forma, era como, quien dice, pues, ¿no? Una esfera, ¿no? Una bola, como giratoria, que tenía colores de luz blanca, luz roja, y no había forma en sí, era como algo muy raro. Y en ese momento vino la parte más rara, que fue que el pelo de todos, el cabello como le llaman aquí, se nos erizó, se nos paró. fue como algo así como pasa cuando la Tierra es estática. Y ahí fue que esta parte se puso fea, ¿no? Porque la luz empezó a subir despacio y se escuchó como un zumbido, algo así como... Y eso es lo que dio miedo, más el temblor, más el pelo. Todo sumado fue como una pesadilla, fue una pesadilla. Así que esa fue parte fea, ¿no? Todos nos fuimos al piso del barco, empezamos a decirle a las personas lo que nos había pasado unos días después, nadie nos creyó y ahí vino el problema que le contamos pues, ¿no? A la policía, llamamos a la policía, al 105 ya vinieron y nos entrevistaron pues, ¿no? Nos trajeron una persona que supuestamente dijeron que, no sé, venía del extranjero, de esos lugares, pues no, los gringos, y ahí fue que empezó todo este problema con lo de las redes, con lo de la cosa.
Okay, so before I go into the video, I just want to say there was a picture of an alien playing a guitar. I didn't put that in. I found a couple of montages for the Nazca mummies and just kind of threw them in. Like I said, I was in a rush to put all this together. Didn't see the alien playing a guitar. Would have removed that if I saw it, but there we go. Also, you might have heard like some tapping through all of that. There were issues with that video. I had to like re-record it. So as I was recording it, I was like madly typing my brains out, writing this show. So if you could hear all that, that's all that was. But anyway, so after that, like I said, this is a 15-minute long video. There's a lot to it. Lewis goes on to talk about how after he spoke to the local police that gringos began showing up and photographing his house, and he confronted them. He didn't really get a response, and he realized that they don't even speak Spanish. And he was under the impression that they were US federal agents. And not long after that, Lewis was found dead in his home, strangled. Now, look, it's been a big show. I don't want to keep weaving and jumping all over the place and tying in all these different stories, as interesting as it all is, how it all relates. But James Fox recently did the podcast circuit, and he was interviewed by Chris Ramsey on Area 52. Again, if you follow me and you don't follow him, what are you doing? Go and follow him. They had a whole section talking about like the literal real life Men in Black and how that they're not just American in a sense of like they're American people, or at least they sound American, but there is like this global reach, and that whenever these kind of things happen anywhere in the world, there are American men in suits who turn up and are like tracking and pressuring people into silence about their experiences. And they turn up quick too. Like it's like they were already there. They didn't have to catch a flight. They got there. I wonder maybe they had some exotic vehicles to do that. But look, we know the CIA, because look, Men in Black sounds ridiculous, right? And James Fox and Chris, they talk about that. We know the CIA has actively used movies and media to muddy the truth. And making a movie about the Men in Black as this kind of cool, funny comedy with Will Smith is the literal perfect tactic to destroy anybody who claims to have this kind of experience, right? Everyone is just going to call you a lunatic who watches too many movies. And like, it's the perfect disinformation tactic. And I can guarantee that the Men in Black is not the only case of this, right? Movies and television is the perfect way to maintain control and program society. Like, it's literally a direct line into your home, pumping it full of messages and ideas that they want you to know and think about. Maybe that's why the mainstream news is so fucking depressing. Now, look, I wasn't going to bring this into the show, but I thought about it while we were watching that. And, you know, since we're pulling in random videos, I'm going to plug my own TikTok here. It's relevant. It's relevant to what we just looked at. This may come in really loud, so I'm going to try and fix it really quick, but be aware. Here we go. Seriously, can anyone explain to me why the Pope has this symbol on his robes that is identical to a giant geoglyph of a humanoid-looking figure in the northern desert of Chile. Like seriously, what is going on here? It's pretty common knowledge that the global elites know a lot more than they let us normies in on, but this is literally like waving it in front of our face. Like, what is this? Before anybody starts commenting saying this picture is fake or it's probably been altered or AI, no. This was posted 6 years ago in an article by The Guardian. Now, I had to scribble out a little bit of the title, but Catholic Church, children, I'm sure you can understand the context of this article. So unless The Guardian are posting pictures of the Pope with aliens on his robes for absolutely no reason and no relevance to their story, then I feel pretty comfortable in saying that this is a real image. So what kind of significance does it have to this? The Atacama Giant. This is one of the biggest geoglyphs in the world depicting a humanoid figure. It's believed to have been created between 1,000 and 1,400 years ago by ancient Incan cultures. It's over 100 meters tall and it's on the Pope's robes. Why? Like seriously, like let's move away from aliens and UFOs for a second and just, can anybody actually tell me, why does the Pope have this on his robes? It is aliens. Can anybody tell me? Look, that was from the Pope's visit to Chile, as I said in the video. So it's not Peru, but it's right next to it. And look, a lot of people have said, you know, it's just a gift. The people of Chile like gifted the Pope robes with this figure on it. And that's the reason, you know, people get really upset to try and tell you these things in the comments. But I think the real question is, why is this thing, this figure, so significant to anybody? Like, what is this? Why is it so important that it's getting put on the Pope's robes? Why does the Pope care about it so much that he's actually agreeing to wearing it on his robes? And yeah, does anybody have any answers there? Look, I just thought that was an interesting little weave in, even though I said I wouldn't weave anymore. But that wraps up for today, guys. What a show. Honestly, like what a wild week that it's been. And I feel like we are just getting started here. Now, I've got one more clip for you. I'm going to let you go with one more clip because I think it's crazy how people have been kicking and screaming for more whistleblowers and more evidence for so long. And now that this stuff is coming to light, the same people are pointing fingers, calling people liars and grifters and disinfo agents. And I completely forgot to mention that the Randy Anderson has had a bunch of kickback against him already because he has like prior convictions of drug use. Like, seriously? So now he's automatically just a pathological liar. Like, you know, it's hilariously ridiculous. And it's important to be skeptical, but not everything is a fucking psyop. Like, just relax, okay? Again, I'm not saying, I can't confirm to you that what he's saying is real, but just because the guy's done a few drugs in his life doesn't mean he's a lunatic, okay? So, again, just before we play that clip, I wanted to say thank you to my beautiful weirdos here. I want everyone, this is not just for our members, but come and join the conversation in our Discord. It's going to be linked below. It's open to everybody to mingle, chat, talk about stuff, but our members do have their own designated safe space channel, but the whole Discord is open to the public. So everyone should get involved there. Look, if you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, okay? Because there's going to be a lot more videos coming. The news is about to go bonkers, and I think I'm going to be doing more like daily or bi-daily kind of videos. So please drop this one a like if you enjoyed it. Share it around with your friends because I've not just about helping me grow this channel, but like people need to know this stuff. Like this is out there. It's not just a guy on YouTube telling you. I'm just showing you, okay? So we need to show people this stuff. Get it out there. Thank you for watching. I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing you very soon, and I'm going to let you go with this hilarious clip from Tim Dillon.
And we're acting right now like we're either on the brink of a nuclear war or we're on the brink of an alien invasion. This seems to be the accepted wisdom of all the people you speak to. By the way, and these aren't like Looney Tunes. These are like people, like high-ranking officials. These are people who either believe we're like on the precipice of a conflict with a foreign government or aliens are about to land or both. Or both. And then most people go, both. You literally, I have conversations with people, they go, we're in a big conflict with a foreign government and then the aliens are probably going to land maybe to prevent that conflict. And you have to go, what? Wait, what? And then you have to just get a croissant or something. There's nothing else to do. You got to go along with your humdrum bullshit life after this. you just have to go do dumb shit, like at a car wash, and you stand there as they're washing your cars. A bunch of guys are wiping down your car, and you have to think about whether it's aliens or a nuclear attack or both, and which one comes first. And is there going to be a big disclosure project? And it's like crazy. We're living in a time of peak. So either we're living in the most historic time ever, or we're all insane. Or, to take a page from the book of people that I've talked to, both. We are all insane, and it's a historic time, and that doesn't help. If this is the craziest time ever, and we're about to see and hear all these crazy things, we need to be rational and clear-eyed. And there's nothing more disturbing than having aliens land to a planet of schizophrenics. You imagine that? The aliens land, and they should reveal themselves. It was like, oh, fuck you, it's fraud. You government fraud. Aliens like, what? Oh, yeah. We've seen this. We've seen this act.